Okay, what I have for you today is a postcard rabbit hole. Right up here, you will see a postcard of the USS Chicago. This is a protected cruiser from the United States Navy, which was placed into service in 1885. It's part of the ABCD ships, which were put into place after a period of dilapidation of the U.S. Navy following the Civil War. But of importance here is this postcard. This is a postcard of the wireless telegraph station and operators on the U.S. flagship Chicago. This is a divided back postcard and it is from the American News Company. It's got its number here, and this is dating this with the divided back about 1909. And there might have been some postcards of this printed in 1906 with a undivided back, because that's when they went from undivided back to divided back. What's going on at this point in time with this ship? It had recently gone through some modernization, and the Navy was outfitting the fleet, starting to outfit the fleet and their naval stations with wireless telegraphs. So this was getting its modernization on the East Coast, 1903, 1904. And it was probably outfitted with this wireless telegraph at that time. Now, after it was modernized, it was going to go to the West Coast in San Diego to be the flagship of the Pacific Fleet. It gets out there, and within that short period, something happens in April of 1906. It's the San Francisco earthquake. And this ship, along with, I believe, from what the records say, over 44 other additional ships from the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Army, they went full gear into rescue operations following the San Francisco earthquake. Not a lot. You hear about the earthquake, but you really don't hear about the military's response. And they did this response without Congress, presidential. They just started working. And just a remarkable story. But what's interesting about this is, again, this photograph. Well, okay, first of all, let's talk about this. Obviously, this is not a photograph, but a lot of these colorized postcards were originally real photo postcards, and they were later colorized and made into lithograph postcards and produced. This one likely potentially taken by the Mueller photographers, which father and son, they did a lot of the photographs and postcards of the United States Navy at the turn of the century. So this potentially started off as a photograph. I have not been able to find that photograph. Looked through the National Library of Congress, archives, various sources, can't find it. And these postcards here, I do eBay pretty regularly, and I have only seen this pop up twice. Once I bought it, sold it, regretted it, found it again, bought it again, and I'm going to keep it for my own collection. I have not seen one since. It's somewhat of a rarity. And what I see, and I have seen other telegraph stations on ships that were placed in older ships, before, they were built with them. And for some Germans, one, for example. And very similar, that they would build a some type of mechanism, and I don't know if this is a wooden structure. It looks like plank wood in there. I've seen the same thing on a German battleship as well. I don't know if with the wiring and the antennas, the best thing for them to do was basically, put this telegraph office outside of the ship and basically make its own little thing, and that way they can have all the telegraph wires and antennas going through there on the mastings or wherever they're mounting it. So it's interesting that I've seen these before. You don't see too many early photographs of these early telegraph units, so that's why it's kind of neat. Now what's neat about this one, so the earthquake happens, so the USS Chicago, along with several other ships, come up from San Diego to San Francisco. And they get there, and there's no communications outside the city. Every telegraph wire, everything's been destroyed either by the earthquake itself or fire. So it is the USS Chicago's telegraph unit, potentially these two guys right here, that established communication with the outside world of what's going on in San Francisco during this earthquake. So some unsung heroes for sure. So to me, that's what the love of postcards and some of the rabbit holes you can get into of what the postcards can teach us. Now, just to kind of give you some ideas, so what I do, a lot of times I will start with Wikipedia, oh no. Yeah, that's true. And a lot of times will allow you to just give you a broad blanket, and then you can narrow down your sources to more official sources, some primary sources. And again, you have the history of the Chicago. It does mention the role it played in the San Francisco fire. It didn't initially, but when I found this out, I went ahead and submitted this photo, and some other contributors actually added some documentations and references to that. So now it's part of the story. I also believe I also added that photo. This photo is from the Library of Congress. It is one of the photographs that's taken by Mueller. And you can see the quality of these real photo postcards is phenomenal. This was never made into a lithograph postcard that I know of, but this is the quality, and this is actually a photograph. This size-wise, it wouldn't fit on a real photo postcard, but this is one of his photographs. But just an absolute beautiful, beautiful photograph right there. So there's that. Now, so sometimes I will start here in Wikipedia to research a ship. Sometimes I will bounce to the Naval Heritage website, Naval Heritage and Command, Naval History and Heritage Command website. They'll give a lot of information on ships of the line. Somewhat limited, but does have some, you talk about images. This is all, now the Chicago is a pretty famous cruiser, protected cruiser, beautiful ship. An amazing history, amazing story why the ABCD ships went into use. But you can, just some of these images, and you go the full realm of imaging. Here you have a stereo view card that's in there with some of the munitions. And you've got photographs, you've got real photo postcards. Let's see. Here's some of the guns, some of the crews. Just some amazing photographs. Now that's the official naval website. Now there's also another great site. This is maintained by volunteers. If you find a Navy ship and you want to find some information about it, I will usually find the ship within their database, and then I will kind of scroll down. And so this is all the photos that they have on the Chicago. Okay. All right. Just to kind of give you an idea, some beautiful photographs. These are probably getting from various sources. Okay, this is from the Detroit Photographic Company. But like I says, in the search looking for that Telegraph office, I could not find a real photograph. But sometimes when I'm trying to identify a ship or identify the time period, I will use these images from the Naval Heritage or from these folks to try to identify it. And sometimes I'll have to look at different modernization periods, cross references and stuff like that to find some of these things. So here is a postcard that probably came originally from a real photo postcard, then it was transitioned to a lithograph, just to kind of give you an idea. Let's see if there's anything else. So weird story in the 1930s about a murder. Clarence Darrow was involved in some interesting stuff towards the end of the ship's career. Kind of sad that I had to end on that kind of note, but see if there's any other wonderful pictures I want to highlight. Oh, we've seen that one. Sorry. I like the pictures actually on the ship. I think that just gives you a real flair for it. Let's look back over here at Naval Command. I think they might have actually had some more interior views. Here we go. Check this out. Look at that wardroom. Beautiful. The woodwork in there. And then, you know, you can download these photographs. Yeah, just amazing. Now, towards the San Francisco earthquake itself, come on, get up there. You've got a couple things. You've got this from the National Archives. Okay, when the city was destroyed and the U.S. military response as first responders. Phenomenal article and references to primary sources. Okay. And there is another article here on the Navy's response, and that's from the Navy Museum of the United States Navy. You can see some of the ships that were sent down, some fire tugboats that were used, and of course the USS Chicago and its role with the Telegraph. Not just with the Telegraph, but they also sent sailors to establish civilian control, help fight the fire, you know, in San Francisco. And then they did a huge evacuation of the city. And there's some references saying that it was a huge amount of folks, I think something like 20,000, that hadn't been seen before. And it wasn't repeated until maybe Dunkirk. So it's just absolutely amazing, the history with how the military responded and how they handled it. So they did a stellar job. Here's those some of those tugs and fireboats. But it also has a picture of, like I said, the sailors maintaining civil control in the city. There also, I don't have it up, but you can find a timeline of a wireless in this is from the U.S. Naval Institute, Wireless in Warfare, 1885 to 1904. Talks about the development, the experimentation using different equipment, and how they began outfitting the fleet and the stations, and basically the timeline of when they did that. So also something very interesting to look at and research. So this is some of the rabbit holes you can get into when you get into collecting real photo postcards, photographs, and Euphoria just in general. It's amazing. It's good for people that don't have much, that tend to really hyper focus on one thing and then next day move to something totally different. But it's a great way to learn history, collect some great postcards, and really enjoy the hobby. And it's something I hope you get into because it can be very rewarding and enjoyable. So I thank you for watching, and have a good day.